the same concept applies. Also, so the private loans are different. You cannot really consolidate them. If you go into default on them, it's tough. It's tough because although they're supported by the federal government in terms of protection for bankruptcy, there's very few options. They do the minimum amount for consumers if they run into financial problems. You can do a forbearance, but there's a certain number you can do. And then they charge you $50 every single time you want to do it. And they make you go through this process, and they really question what, it's like, come on. With the federal, it's much, much easier. So, if you do, you have to then, if the private loans are an issue, you have to then negotiate with the lender before you go 275 days past due. Once that happens, it goes to a collection agency. And then every time you call Navient, you get rerouted to the collection agency. They won't even talk to you anymore. So then you have to negotiate with the collection agency. Well, the collection agency will add roughly 20% on top of what you owe in legal fees. So you really want to try to avoid going into collections with the private loans.
Wow.
So if you really want to focus on loans, focus on the private loans if you have them.
Right.
Really manage those, make sure they don't go into default. You have options on the federal side. I'm not saying go into default, but if you're forced and back against the wall, you have more negotiating power with the federal loans versus the private loans.
Right. In listening to you, this is a serious topic. And it's one that, you can't bury your head in the sand and make believe it's going to go away, because it's not. So it's an issue that has to be dealt with. And so I thank you for coming in, and I thank you for sharing the information. This isn't our entertaining, segments. This is an informative session, and I hope people really pay attention. And we have to figure this out together. We as a country are $1.5 trillion in debt. And what we're saying is you can't just ignore it. It won't just go away, and it'll only get worse. So we're going to have to deal with it. So it's people like you who can help us find our way through this maze of debt that we found ourselves in with College Debt Solution. And so is there a phone number attached that I can give people? What is your phone number, or how would someone contact you if they want to your help or your services?
They can go to customer service at collegedebtsolution.com.
Okay.
Probably the best way to reach me. And I'll be able to direct them to whatever resources and information they need, or speak with them directly.
Okay. So could you give us that information one more time?
Yeah, it's customer service at collegedebtsolution.com.
Okay. And then from there, you can guide them to whoever can best help them, or someone on your staff can guide them to whoever best can help them with their personal situation, because all situations aren't the same.
Right.
Like you said, some people have private debt, some people have government debt, some have the combination, some don't know what they have.
Right.
They just know they're in debt.
Right.
And it's not going away.
Yeah.
And this can ruin your credit. This can stop you from buying a home. This can, put you in a position where when you go to buy a car, your interest rate is a lot higher because your FICO score is low. This can have a negative impact on you for the rest of your life, and it's not going to go away. It's something that at some point has to be dealt with, and I thank you for coming in to talk about it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So, I have lots of questions.
Okay.
So another question I have is, are there out-of-pocket costs for attending college? That was one question. So when you are in the loan process and you are getting these loans, usually they cover about 80% of the total debt that you owe. And if you can possibly get a job and pay for that other 20%, you're starting off not so negative. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you are in the debt process, and when you are at that point in the loan where you say, okay, I'm out of school 6 months, I'm making these payments, I can't afford to continue to pay. What can someone like that do? Because we talked about, the person who doesn't realize they have to pay it all, or they don't know what the damage that can be done. What about the person who has made payments, but they're not in a position to keep paying? What would you say to that person?
Well, if they have the the federal loans, it's easiest to put it into a economic deferment or forbearance. That is easy to do. And you can do something like that with the private loans, although that's much more regulated and controlled. And that'll give you a little bit of breathing room to figure out what your next move will be. But regarding you really want to make sure you're very careful with how you proceed, and make sure you communicate. A lot of people, like you said, will bury their head in the sand and like, well, if I don't look at it, it'll go away. It won't go away.
No, the letters will keep coming. The phone calls will come. You have to take care of this.
Another thing too to add, I didn't mention before, I wanted to mention earlier, is that whether you're starting out now in college or you're already finished, there's something called loan forgiveness. And depending on your degree, that the field that you're going into, a portion of your loan can be forgiven. But you got to follow a strict process and renew it each year for every year that you're in college. I mean, every year you're in your field. Your field.
So give us an example of something that a debt that can be forgiven. Give us an example.
If you're a teacher, is one of them.
Oh, okay. So
military,
if you decide
another one.
so if you decide to teach, public school, private school, is it just teacher blanket in general, or is it specific?
Usually they require you to go to a certain area that doesn't have the resources. And that really will qualify you for getting your loans forgiven.
Oh, okay. So if you decide to teach and you want to, and you can focus on an area that is in need, so maybe a poverty area, or area that's below what they consider the poverty line, where they have a greater need for teachers. And then if you go to teach in those areas, you can apply for loan forgiveness through your college, but there's a lot of paperwork to fill out.
It's through, I think it's on my website as well. It's through the government.
Oh, it's through the government. Okay.
Also, healthcare is another one that really applies to this as well. So there's several fields that apply, and you really want to be aware going into it. Or if you actually happen to major in that and got a degree in it, social work's one, you could actually get some loans forgiven. That's a big relief overall.
Okay, so back to the 12th grade student. That might want to go into these fields, know that, going in, that there may be some relief on the other side once you graduate. Once you actually get a job in your field, some of your debt can be forgiven. Right.
And going back to that student that's in the 12th grade, you really want to be very conscious of the major that you choose.
Right.
The big term that's very aware, my wife's working on it at her job as well, is called STEM jobs. Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yes.
Those fields are huge and are growing in the future. So people that have a strength or desire or interest in those fields, you really want to pursue those, because most times engineering, computer science, architecture, you usually only need a bachelor's degree because it's so highly technical at that level. You really don't need to get a PhD, and sometimes you need to get a master's. Just depends. But those their fields really are growing, and something to consider for those people that have that interest and have the aptitude to those areas.
Okay, so if you are interested in, say it again?
STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, or math, those kind of jobs.
Okay, and those jobs will be jobs that they'll be able to get as they get out of school in the future, because there are a lot of fields that are not hiring anymore. That they're downsizing, so you want to pick something that you can excel in, and something that you can pick up work in. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So another question I have for you is, when you're from the debt side of it, because that's a lot of times where you get people's attention, is when they're in debt and they realize they can't get out without doing something. How much of your income, if you know this, how much of your income can be attached? Can they start to attach your wages when you owe student debt?
I believe if you default, they levy about 15%.
So they can levy 15% of your income if your loans go into default.
Yes, 15%, and that doesn't include.
And that's not net; that's your gross.
That's from gross. They'll take your tax return if you have one. So you really got to be careful. They'll also go into your bank account and take money out. So you really got to be very careful. I mean, it's pretty serious. When you go into default and just don't pay, they'll just take the money.
Wow. That's good to know. That's good to know. So everyone listening out there, this is a serious topic. And I know we talk about wealth building, and we talk about encouraging small businesses on this show. We talk a lot about finance and how to grow wealth. But this is a very important subject because people see education as their way out. People see education as their way to the next level. And it can be, and it usually is. You just have to do it right. And that's what we're saying here today is that do it right. Do your research. Don't be so quick to jump in because you think it's that time. Make sure that you do all the research necessary so that you make the most educated choice you can when it comes to borrowing money to get a higher education.
I also want to add too, I want a lot of students to think that they have to get, if they're just looking at an advanced degree or trying to really expand upon the skills that they have, they really got to understand all the options out there. I didn't understand this afterwards. There are a lot of certificate programs. There's one called SHRM, it's HR. There's one called Six Sigma, which is something I'm actually into based on my background. These are all certificate programs that cost about $2,500 to $3,000. Comes out of your own pocket, but it really can increase your income without doing a whole new program.
And you'll see if you really like it. That's the other thing. You know, it's a shame to get so far into a program and then realize you don't even like it.
Right.
You know, and then what do you do? How do you backtrack from that, you know, and go in another direction? That's even more expensive. You know how expensive it is to change majors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, because you've gone down this path for 3 years, 3.5 years, and then you get to that point and you say, you know, I don't really think I want to do this all my life. I think I want to go this way. And, you know, that's another significant cost because you have to go and take classes that are prerequisites to that major now. So, yeah, some of these accreditation programs might be a better way to go.
You know, also to add to what you're saying, to really understand the field you're getting into, it's a really good idea to find someone in that field and do an informational interview. Sit down and say, I want to meet you for coffee or for lunch, and really pick your brain about what your experience is in this particular field that I'm interested in. It will be something, ask the tough questions. Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Do you feel the same that you did the first day you started? Are you still passionate about it? Or would you have made another decision? You know, I had a friend of ours who went to school for a very long time to be, a surgeon. And she decided in the end she doesn't really like it. But she's a top in her field, but she doesn't feel a love and passion for it. But she put so much time into it, she feels like she has to now continue in this area. So it's really good to get an idea of what it's going to look like for you in the future. Is it really going to be something that you want to do, that you're really going to be passionate about, and really worth your time and money to get the education?